Hey guys, it's Nolen and Jason here with Roofing Webmasters.
Howdy.
We're going to go over an interesting one today. I think it's fascinating personally, but it's multiple Google Map locations and rankings for roofers. So multiple Google Map location and rankings for roofers explained, and moreover, if you don't get this right, you're screwed, basically.
Yeah, it just won't work.
I'm going to give a real life example of somebody who called that became screwed because they did this, who was trying to spend a $50,000 Google Ads budget as a result of screwing this up, and how that happened and why.
Yeah.
And why the call really wasn't about looking for Google Ads. The call was an underlying fundamental problem with their marketing on Google Organic because they'd screwed this up.
Right.
And I'm going to go over one that we got that was another call, who's not a current client, but we hope he would become one, that is in the process of screwing this up. In the process. So had hit it big on one location and had two other locations, all within a microcosm that Google seems acceptable, that is local of a metro area, which I'll explain in a second.
Right.
And he was big time now and going to move like 4 hours away to another entirely different metro area within the same state. So we'll talk about that. So, and then I'm going to give another example of AAMCO transmission shops and how they've remedied this and do it properly.
Right.
So let's go over first the guy that I talked to, and we won't mention any names of companies, no disrespect to anybody and where they are in their process of understanding marketing online.
Right.
That's what we're here for, right? So we're here to explain
As they seek enlightenment, no judgment.
As they seek enlightenment.
Actually, yes, judgment, but we won't be obvious.
We're here to help people. It's not judgment as much as it's maddening to have the knowledge and to see people move through their steps of enlightenment.
Yeah.
Because with the guy that called, that is banging one area, took him there. Like, as I always like to say in Texas, we said the one who brung him to the dance.
Right.
That he's now going to turn his back on.
Is he going to shut down that location?
No.
Oh,
no.
okay.
Let me explain.
Go ahead.
You and I have talked about it, but we'll re-explain it as I drink my Texas tea here. Guy called up, says, "Hey, want to go into?" And now here's one of the problems: when somebody calls professional services, usually, and we talk about this a little bit, and I don't mind really. I don't mind the nature of a call. It's just that if I called a CPA or an attorney or estate planning or anything like that, I don't call and say, "Hey, I need you." I might say, I want this done, right?
Right.
But I don't dictate the way that it's done. I say, "Well, how is that done?" And they'll go, "Well, this is what you need to do." And I'll go, "Oh, my brain either understands it. Sometimes I don't originally, and I'm like, oh God, that's going to take me a while to wrap my head around."
Right.
But just because I don't understand it doesn't mean I tell them not to do their job. Right. Or change the way in which they should do it. Yeah. Right. So I had some of that stuff done recently with estate planning stuff. I don't understand all of it. It's confusing, very confusing. Multiple entity formations and stuff, and I'll figure it out eventually. But I have some work done. Yeah. But anyway, so I called up and said I want to start up a new location. I just need to get this location to optimize 4 hours away. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so go and he's in a sub-market in a big state. So in a sub-market in a big state, and a sub-market I'm going to call like 100,000 people. Okay. Right. So
it's mid-size, mid to small size city.
Big enough to have
a city, not a town, but not a big city.
Not a big city. Big cities I'm going to call 500,000 metro, right, or bigger. Right. So he's in an area that's 100,000, and even though the marketing effort there was okay, it wasn't good enough to be in a bigger area. But there where he was, it was better than average. Right. And so he had experienced gains from this area, showing up on Google Map Pack 3, and really no organic rankings to speak of, and we'll talk about it in just a second. So as he experienced success there, he popped off a couple of other small sub-markets in here. I honestly didn't. I know that town doesn't have more than 100,000 people. There may be another 100,000 in the vicinity. So maybe it's 200,000. So he's getting benefit of minor, maybe a few organics, which is not the map, but non-paid. And he's getting mapping a lot. So he had gotten a lot of reviews, and the website was about this town, or located in this town. And even though the organic, which is the words inside, and the non-map was done poorly, Google could tell that it was about this area. So this guy was local, in a local area. And just so y'all know, Jason and I don't make these rules.
Yeah, this is not something we invent. This is how Google does
This is the part that, now we help people show up on this stuff.
Right.
So when I see a guy,
we know how it works.
We know how it works. And that's how it works today.
Right.
And it's been like this for a long time.
Yeah.
Like 7 years.
Yeah. If anything, over time, they've become more local.
More local.
More insistent on the local result.
Right. So when someone's looking for a roofer, and if you want to show up in multiple locations ever, this deal's critical. And this information we're giving you, I'm going to say, lay a pretty safe bet it'll be good for the next 5 years or so.
Right.
Because the gentleman that we're talking about used a 10-year-old report to attempt to debunk what I said. Right.
A 10-year-old blog post. That's right.
A 10-year-old blog post.
Right.
Yeah. And so let's talk about, so Google's wanting to help the user experience. The user wants to find a local roofer. Google will only put up people and I'm not saying not at all, but and I'm going to give examples of all this because this one's a good one. If they think they're local.
Right.
Once someone's not local, regional, or national, they're not as good for the user experience and don't meet user intent as well.
Yeah. The only time you'll see those results on a Google search is if in the area you're in, Google cannot find a local provider marketing properly that lets Google know who they are.
Very correct, Jason. We're going to give an example of that with AAMCO and some other stuff, and even with this guy here. So even though we debunked all of what was said,
right?
Because someone they wish and they hope that Google will bend to their will. They do though.
I shouldn't laugh.
They do. They wish and they hope that Google's going to bend to their will. Nolen's not correct. He's not the goat that he says he is.
You're telling me I can't do this.
Yeah.
It's like, no.
Nobody tells me what to do. Google will do what I want them to do, by God.
No.
Nolen Walker here for Data Pins. You may not know, but I own a software company, and we have a proprietary software called Data Pins, DATAPINS. You can search it at datapins.com. This is not white labeled. I actually own this piece of software, and I made it for you. It was made for contractors. You can actually take pictures of jobs, up to 6, make a caption about the material, the brand, the situation, the repairs, and post that back to your individual pages on your website, just like that. It's super simple. Anyone could use it. It also texts and emails your clients direct links to your reviews, so it helps reputation and reviews, which helps conversion and map placement. The geo coordinate gets grabbed by Data Pins, and Google can tell where you are. So instead of them just seeing reviews, they see all jobs or even estimates that you do. This vastly outperforms just getting reviews. Helps the map show up, helps organic keywords. And remember, those captions that you're putting in there help expand the keywords per page, and it's great regular content. I love it. We made it just for you. It is organic optimization on steroids for both your website, your rankings, and the map placement. Check out Data Pins. I think you'll be happy you did.
So this site had been watered down a little bit with keyword stuffing of the 2 other local towns. Watered down and obliterated. Obliterated in the fact that the one town was no longer mentioned in the body content, the meta title, stuff like that. So now when someone reads it, they still kind of looked local, but there was boxes of the different cities down below. Okay. So they had the main city of about, I don't know if this is exact, but around 80,000. And they had another city of 20 or 30, and another one of 20 or 30. But Google knew all these cities were local. Local defined as within 90 minutes of each other-ish. The people that looked at it knew it was local. It had a local area code, and it was local on today's standards of the Google algorithm and what matches up with user intent. And so he did well with local mapping. Now, He moves to,
Now, but I want to make the point that
Yeah.
if he was showing well, what that actually means, that does not necessarily mean that he was doing everything right. It just means that no one else in the market was doing better.
it's a very good point and it's correct. No one else did anything better.
Right.
And so he was, I call it his horse was running faster than most others.
Yeah.
He was one of the top 3 horses on the track. Legitimately. Local business, doing good. Site wasn't good enough to optimize in the northern area that he was going to, or Houston or Dallas or, or any of these other places that are huge.
Right.
Orlando and such. So, guy moves up north, changes the website again, and stuffs in the 4th city. Maybe the 4th.
That's 4 hours away and is a big city.
4 hours away and a big city. So 4 hours away, and actually this is in Google Webmaster Guidelines, that if you can't, you're not supposed to really even have, they don't follow all their own guidelines because they'd obliterate too many of you roofers out there.
Yeah.
So they follow, which I think one of the guidelines is if you're like a local service business, you're not supposed to have another location within 2 hours.
Right.
You're not supposed to just gobble up market share and like trick Google. I don't think this guy really did that. I think these were legitimate locations locally. 2 of them had reviews. One of them was the mega one. I'm going to say what he should have done. But let's keep talking about the slow train wreck that's unfolding.
Right.
And so then he's like, I'm great. I'm a great guy. And he is. He's done well in that area and it's good enough. Bar our judgment of it, it's good enough.
For the smaller
For
city.
the smaller town.
Right.
So he moves to the larger town. I'm great. I'm going to expand. I'm going to have my dreams come true. More power to you, right? And I'm for that. I'm a business guy. I want him to succeed.
We want to see that kind of
So
success.
he calls up and he says, I want to move up here. And I said, okay. And he said, when I moved up there, I started doing more, I know we're going to have to market differently and better up here. There's more competition. I said, that is true.
Okay.
And I said,
good. You head somewhat in the right place.
I start looking at it and I'm like, I'm not happy about what I see here. This is a long ways away. And I said, so I stepped back and stopped and said, hey, because he said, I know we're going to have to do Google ads. This is where he starts entering in narratives without asking. Okay,
Right.
Which is fine. I don't care. I want to hear from people. I want to help them. But he said, I know that we're going to have to do Google ads there. Now, I don't disagree with it. I don't have any problem with Google ads or any other type of ad or paid leads. I'm a business guy. I want people to succeed. I just know they cost a lot more. And I'm going to discuss that in a second too. But he went up there saying, I know we're going to have to do that. I know we're going to have to fight. And I said, well, you're going to have to fight differently. And I explained to him why his website was barely good enough for where he was and that he had to bring a game there. But furthermore, I was like, you're going to have another website.
Yeah.
Not because I want to make more money off of you, but because you're no longer local. Now, I explained to him how the watered down nature, he said, well, that would explain when he stuck the other city, and he might have put 2 more cities on there because he was technically outside of the main city. So now he's got these stuffed up there. Google recognized it and said, aha, you're not local anymore, bro. You're regional. And the content is watered down and will confuse people. They're looking, their user intent is to find something topically relevant to a local roofer, which you
Are not. Yeah.
So he loses the one who brung him.
Yeah.
He loses the 100,000, 200,000 market begins to diminish. And you say, well, wait a minute, Nolen. And it's like, no, he didn't have organic anyway.
Yeah. You said all he had was mapping showing.
He had a little bit of organic, mainly mapping showing up, but he started to lose the mapping. Wait a minute, Nolen, that's connected through the website. So the website gets spidered, determined that he's not as local as he used to be, and he begins to lose Pack 3 mapping, which he recognizes but disassociated from the other thing. And I'm like, until I had said something.
He sees the result, but he doesn't understand
Doesn't know
how he got it. Yeah.
Like that happened because of this. Now, in the guy's head, he wants to do, dozens and dozens of locations, which I might add, guys, and this is where like I'll take a step back and go, I'm not anybody's keeper. I'm not, I want people to have locations. I can just tell you from doing this for 12 to 13 years that the amount of roofers that I've seen run more than 2 or 3 locations is almost non-existent.
I don't think I've ever seen above 3.
Yeah.
And even that, and that's rare.
When they go into too many, they pull back because it's a service-oriented business. It's very difficult to run hard labor people and salespeople.
Right. I mean, but believe me, if we could take one of you guys and give you
50
a
locations.
roofing empire in Florida and the entire southeast coast,
Yeah.
we would love to do that for you.
That's a whole different conversation. You know, income earned through a business and then you invest it and whatnots. But expansion, just for the sake of expansion, is problematic. But I will say this: I love it when a guy has 2 locations, 3 locations, because when storms hit, they're diversified.
Right.
So I don't hate it at all. I think that this guy already had 3 locations that were in a market area that can diversify you depending on the type of storms that hit. But he was already doing well, and one geography way separate location is not dumb either. It's a smart idea. The problem,
If done right.
The problem is starting to think about dozens before, cart before the horse.
But before you have the 4th one going
While
to a dozen,
while dismantling the first one.
Right.
So let me wrap up some concepts here. And then we'll explain more of it. If somebody's going to do two geographically completely separate locations, you're going to have a separate website. Otherwise, your map won't perform properly, and your organic won't be there anyway. So, organic being non-mapping, but all this talking about SEO or non-paid items on Google, which is over 70% of the search. And over 80% of people still going to Google look for this stuff. So multiples of magnitude larger to get organic in mapping. And yes, the mapping won't show up as well if the website and the effort of the roofer is not a local effort. Google's kind of okay though, and I'll give the AAMCO example, if the local effort shown to the user is local.
Right.
So if that effort shown to the user locally is meaning they might know that this guy's up in the northern part of the state and the central part of the state and be okay with it as long as the user experiences a local shopping experience, like as long as that's what they get. So you're not going to get around this. So the guy's going to have to fix that. Now let's move on and talk about a couple other things with it. I would have liked to have taken this guy's site, fixed the original site, and given him the organic, which he didn't have anyway.
Yeah.
So he would have fixed the problem that was occurring immediately and gotten proper web effort, which is a lot more than...
We could have actually improved what he already had.
Easily.
What he already thought was successful, we could have redoubled what he was getting.
Right. And then he would have been happy immediately. Then he would have moved in for a proper fight.
With a new site.
With a new site.
New site, new location, everything. That's I don't know if we made it clear on that. He wanted to do the 4-hour away location on the same website.
Yeah, let's go over that.
That's what's not gonna
I appreciate you saying that. So he had read an article that said that he was supposed to have a subdomain for the locations. I don't have a problem with the locations getting a page and linking off of a location drop down and those location pages within the site linking from the website button off the Google business profile for the map.
Right.
That would have been okay if it was a localized effort.
Yeah.
That linking off of a subdomain on a site that's no longer local won't fix the fact that it's no longer local. Now, so that's what he wanted to do. And then the site will also get too big. There's all sorts of other things. Well, Nolen, just make 2, the guy's got 3 locations, legit locations, or 5 or whatever. Just make, 3 roofing repair pages with each city, 3. That becomes duplicate content. If he tries to throw in cities from all the way over Timbuktu, it becomes too much just crud content.
Right.
And all this gets screwed up within it. And when the user's stuck inside the system, they get confused. It's not a good user experience, which is why it's not shown. So that's what, and in his mind, if he's going to dozens of locations, this is where cart before the horse will screw up logic.
Yeah.
If he takes it and applies it to a separate website, I'm going to explain that this next example will be very telling as to why. If he takes it and he breaks it like this, in his head, he's like, well, I'm going to have 50 locations. There's no way I'm paying for 50 efforts. Now, and so, because I asked, I was like, well, I guess this is cheaper. He said, well, no, actually, I'm going to pay more money than you, Nolen. A lot of people do because we're a great deal, by the way. Yeah, so no, I'm going to pay more. But no, that's not what he was really thinking. We didn't go into the psyche of the whole thing. He was thinking he's going to pay a little bit more for more skill sets than us, which isn't possible.
No.
Not at least as it exists in this market with everybody we know.
Yeah.
But he was thinking times 50, he's going to save a bundle. Times the 1, he's going to pay a little bit more.
But those 50 proper efforts will pay for themselves.
Right. So let's
and his singular effort won't. But yeah, go.
I'm going to explain that right now, Jason. Let me, before I explain the difference, I'm going to give you, so he's at the beginning of the train wreck in today's SEO world. I'm going to give you a guy that's completed the train wreck.
Okay.
Yeah. But before I do that, I want to sum this up again. Roofer legitimately wants to grow.
Yeah.
Great. We want to help make money. Roofer calls up, wants to move to a geographically completely separate location, violating everything about the laws or Google's algorithm about finding local people, local search to local people.
Right.
Roofer waters down content and keyword stuffs it, and Google can tell it's no longer local, loses the map ranking that he had before, and doesn't now show up in the other one.
Right.
Oh, by the way, before I move on this too, I want to point out, not only did we explain all this, debunk the 10-year-old article easily, but when you go search for a local roofer in this town, they all have websites about the local area. Not one of them is regional, not one of them is national, and not one of them is showing up for an internal city page for the area that's not located there.
Right.
Not one. Not in the map pack, not in the top 10 on the front page.
So he could literally see.
You can literally see it.
What you were telling him in real time.
Correct.
Working.
Correct.
But he ignored it anyway.
He had a moment for pause, talked to us about it, had a very intelligent discussion about what should have been done, could have been done, and then found a 10-year-old article to debunk it that coincided with what he was hoping would have happened.
Right.
End of story.
Yeah.
End of story.
Just to make a point, a 10-year-old SEO article is useless. I mean, hell, a 5-year-old SEO article.
Yeah,
is
that's what I'm
probably
saying.
useless.
This stuff has happened for a long time. I also showed him a website. We used to do this. Somebody called up, wanted to dominate a state. We'd put it in 1,000 city pages.
Yep, we tried it. Whenever we say something doesn't work, it's not because we read a blog article saying don't do this. It's because we did it and it didn't work.
We've done over 1,000 websites. We've done this for roofers. People used to call up and want to dominate 5 states. We would do a subdomain on each state, hundreds if not thousands of city pages. Massive websites out there, massive, and those subdomains don't work at all.
And sometimes at the time we did it years ago, it did work.
Well, that's why we did it.
But then it.
That's
leveled
exactly
off
why we did it. The individual who's referencing in the article used to be the head of SEO for Google, and that was what was recommended at the time. And frankly, at the time, they recommended it. Still didn't work well.
Yeah.
And we did it around the time of the article.
Yeah.
And it doesn't work. It still has a site or two like that because the business owners that do this can't stop themselves and just work one area properly. I'll make that point too before I give the example of the full-blown train wreck. You're gonna make so much more money by doing this properly in one area. This is a fool's errand because the guy could have stayed in the one market, doubled the organic, which is where 70+% of traffic's coming from.
Yeah.
If you want to expand, you have to start paying for leads, which cost hundreds of percent more. I'm going to say a proper organic effort is 500% cheaper than paid ads.
Easily.
Okay, so somebody begins to have to expand now on paid ads. It erodes their profit margin, net profit. I love organic because it's so lucrative. No one can really help with it because of shit like what we're talking about.
Right.
Because the industry's incompetent and just wants to sell you stuff, charge you something for organic or SEO, and then charge you for paid.
Yeah.
So if somebody ever got up in organic properly, that's where the money's made.
Nolen Walker here for Roofers Paradise. Thank you for checking out our podcast here for Roofing Webmasters, where we talk about nothing but marketing. But I'd love for you to check out Roofers Paradise, where I personally interview and talk with roofers. We talk about their successes, their failures, their dreams, their goals and ambitions. It's a great podcast where we actually speak to roofers. Love to have you check out Roofers Paradise. You can find us on YouTube by searching Roofers Paradise. Any platform for podcasts, search Roofers Paradise. Be sure to subscribe, or you can actually go to roofersparadise.show. Look forward to having you over at Roofers Paradise.
Now, let's double back and talk about a guy. Guy calls up. Actually, not even a guy calls up. And let me just say, if these people are making money, I'm not hating on that. I never hate on a business owner making legitimate money. They evidently had a marketing director who called me, who was new. So what does that mean?
Like he was new to the company?
Correct. Okay. That means they're angry at their marketing. They're frustrated.
They fired
right.
or made the other guy miserable and he quit.
So I don't think that a roofer should have a marketing director in the first place. I think the owner should get in the weeds on it personally and not spend those sorts of expenses. Anyway, they had a marketing director. He called up, said, Nolen, this is so-and-so from this, we'll call this roofer number 2. Roofer number 1's just trying to expand, which if they go with us, they can do it. They can absolutely do it. He's not doing it now. Roofer number 2 called up. This all happened within 1 week. That's why I thought this was so interesting. And he said, this is Joe Blow from roofer number 2. He said, I work with an outfit that's got, I think 16 locations or 12 locations, 15. So they're already big. Yeah. I'm the marketing director, I'm new. And I'm like, oh, wow, there's a lot going on here. He said, I know, I'm trying to help them fix it. I said, well, what are you looking to do? He said, well, we have a $50,000 pay-per-click budget. And I'm like, yeah. And I'm like, what? I mean, it could be way bigger.
Yeah, I mean, we've heard bigger, but that's on the upper end of what we hear.
So we have a $50,000 Google Ads budget. Website's completely jacked. One website like a corporation would have. We'll talk about AAMCO in a minute.
With 12 locations?
Yeah, I mean, it was maybe 15 or 12 or so. It was a lot.
But like covering what kind of geographic area?
It wasn't 12 states or 15 states. It was like 4.
Jeez.
So maybe 5 or something. Probably like 4. I'm picturing the map in my head of what. Anyway, so they are all contiguous states. All this. They're there, and he's trying to fix it because their paid ads aren't working. So I air quote aren't working because they're working.
People are clicking them. The budget's being spent.
Right.
As far as Google's concerned, that's working because they're making $50,000 a month.
Correct. So when people say they aren't working, yeah, they work. They just aren't making money for the owners like they want to.
Right.
So again, the nature of call. Now I would have spent the $50,000 and charged them for the services. I'm like, hey, this isn't the problem here. The problem here is that the ads work, they just cost a lot. They don't like the return that they're getting on the ads. The major profit margin return comes off organic, where over 70% of the clicks come from. Now, I'm going to explain the money here and explain the difference in the psyche and the problem with the guy, roofer number 1, roofer number 2. And we have plenty of guys, by the way, that have a couple locations do this very, very successfully. Sometimes in geographically separate areas, sometimes in the same. But anyways, so, and I need to go back and talk about organic content real quick in a second.
Okay.
So organic content we'll touch on and why that's so important. So roofer number 2 calls up, not even talking to the owner anymore. Owner's mad, hired him, fired the last guy.
Yeah.
He's trying to fix stuff with a $50,000 ad spend. They don't have any organic showing up anywhere, and the Google maps are very hit and miss, like only a couple of them shown anywhere. So they're running, and nothing wrong with this, but they're running door knockers and other stuff. I don't have any problem with any of this, but they're trying to bring in leads because it's probably all crumbling down around them every time they turn around, which would be the nature of a door knocking thing anyway. Yeah. Although it can be extremely successful, but it's frustrating. These guys, as they expand, erode their profit margin.
Right.
Doing things like $50,000 ad spend and hiring internal marketing directors that can't really help fix their problems because the owners have it wrong on it. So at least when it comes to organic optimization,
the owner is saying fix this my way.
Correct.
And it can't be fixed their way. Yeah.
So I said, what really would be nice is if these got split into geographic areas. I said, interestingly, you're in these 4 states. I said, you wouldn't need like 12 or 15 websites. I said, from what I can tell, just eyeballing this, you need about 6. Now, the 6 websites if he paid for them, would then begin to show up organically through content, organic optimization, reputation reviews, and Google mapping.
Right.
Now, the reputation reviews and all this almost becomes non-existent at some point when your map doesn't show up. But you do get clicks off of that. You get clicks off of map ranking. You get clicks off of stuff under the map, or if the map doesn't show up. I just call it organic ranking, keyword ranking. So that is over 70% of the stuff, and they're basically not showing up for what we refer to here as the big show.
Right.
So people go, oh, the organic. No, you mean the big show. Oh well, I've got mapping. I don't have the other organic. I mean, the other half of the big show. Yeah. So, and we'll talk about organic.
You're in the arena, but the lights are off.
So they've got 6 sites they could do extremely professionally for 4 digits, like less than 10 grand.
Yeah.
That would give them 500% more to show up there than the 50 grand.
Right.
That they would pay less than 20% of that spend.
And you'd have, this would now be your SEO budget. This is your paid ads budget, but over time, this happens.
Yeah. Your SEO, your paid ad budget can reduce by 100%.
Yeah. The goal would be eventually no paid budget.
You wouldn't have to have it.
Yeah, you wouldn't need it.
You could flex it up and down during storms, or if you wanted to get a new group of salespeople going or whatever, but you wouldn't have to have it, and it would literally produce exponentially more.
Right.
And it would produce as much, if not more, than the 50 grand spend by spending 80% less, by fixing the fact that they don't optimize locally.
Right.
And it's maddening to me to explain this and not have people.
Because they go to Google. The owner of that company goes to Google and he searches and he sees his ad pop up.
Right.
But he doesn't look at the organic or mapping, probably. Or if he does, he looks at it and he gets mad that competitors are showing up. But he never stops to think why and who it is.
Yeah.
Like the fact that it's the local guy.
So they'll rationalize, the guys that do this, that everybody clicks on ads, which actually there's 25-30% of people click on ads.
Right.
Somewhere in there.
The majority of people scroll past the ads and look at mapping and organic. Organic is more than mapping.
Which is a better lead. Yeah, Jason, organic is more than mapping done properly, and people completely ignore that one and miss it. And then people don't understand the fact that all this together, the branded digital, is signaling done within the realm of what the algorithm wants to get from you. That is why stuff shows up.
Right.
Like why things pop up. They don't get the fact that as they expanded, they lost the #1 marketing techniques that's ever been available in humanity. Like ever been available to them. It's just thrown to the side. And it's common with a roofer which is our #1 client here, type of client we work with, because the roofer wants to expand, which is fine. Has a storm somewhere or wants to diversify a little bit, which is fine. But when they do it, a lot of times if the area gets too far away, let's talk about the content for a minute. I'll give the AAMCO example because I think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
In case people want to know why I'm not giving a roofing example, nobody's done it really properly.
Yeah,
so.
Nobody's done a national roofing company properly.
Tech to America. There's some stuff that's out there, but as far as there's a franchise like Honest Dave, they don't do their stuff properly. I mean, there's some stuff, but nobody in roofing does this that's ever succeeded with multiple locations.
Right.
Okay, so content. Content can be the majority of the non-paid searches on Google. If content, like for the guy that was in Central Florida, roofer #1, he was getting business off of mapping, but basically didn't get any content, keyword clicks under the map, or the map doesn't show up. Long tail keywords and things done properly, usage of stuff like data pens to expand keywords properly throughout the page, having enough content about services and materials, some city pages, all this increases also the amount of times the map shows up.
Yeah.
But at very least is half of all clicks, and gross assumptions made on the side of business owners that everybody goes to the paid. Not true. That's the minor one.
We also hear people saying everybody just goes to the map, and that's not true either.
That's not true. There are a lot of people do go to the map, but a ton of people also click on organic or non-map items. Yeah. And when I say organic, it's anything on Google not paid. Anything you didn't have a click paid for.
Right.
So it's very lucrative, and when people buy into the brand, that's where the best leads come from.
Yeah.
So organic content's huge. All right. So that roofer number 2 should have tried it one site, and not 6 at one time, just one. Fix that one, and then they would.
Let's pick your home market, your favorite market, and do it this way there.
Right.
And let us show you what it'll do.
So both these guys, well, the first guy really can't do this because he's not big enough yet. If the second guy did it, what he would do is keep a corporate site. And he could even have locations listed. And then he would have a local site that was very well done and tended to, not an afterthought, that would be connected to the local GBP.
Right.
Or a couple of GBPs in the same metro area.
Right.
90 minutes or less. So let's say that there was 2 or 3 locations within this metro area. Those would be on one. And then the organic content would probably sync up maybe with 1 or 2 cities or the primary city. You can't just stuff all the cities in there or not put the cities at all, because then you don't get your organic content to show up in search ranking, right?
Right.
All right, so lastly, let's explain this one more time in the way of someone that did it properly, which is we worked on a site years ago for an AAMCO transmission shop. I think they're now Total Car Care. So AAMCO Car Care, AAMCO, everybody knows of the company. They're out of Plano, Texas. Plano's a town of about 400,000 people.
Suburb of Dallas.
Suburb of Dallas is a huge town. Now, there was another one that I'm going to use as an example, but let's start with this one. AAMCO, in their wisdom, early on, had a corporate site.
Right.
Most franchisors are greedy and want to control the lead and everything, and will try not to let the franchisee even have a website.
Right. Or if they do, it's
corporate.
It's like amco.com/local location, and it's like 1 page or 2 pages or something.
Or a corporate owned, and so in this case, back in the day, it was corporate owned and corporate controlled, and it was dupe content.
Yeah.
We took it, rewrote it, and he was number 1 for everything.
Yep.
He dropped a little bit, by the way. I looked at it the other day, but if you type in like transmission rebuild Plano TX or transmission repair Plano TX, he's like in the top 3 still. I think he's like 2 or 3. He used to be number 1 when he was with us, and then later down that.
Just to be clear, he dropped when he left us.
Yeah. And then around later in that page, like 8 or 9 or 10, you'll see AAMCO.com corporate site.
Right.
Now, I want to explain why. So when people look for a transmission shop in Plano, Texas, they're looking for a local transmission shop. And that Google used to be called Google Local, and they mainly want to show people local results, and AAMCO.com is not local. Now, they still list this guy there. It's a bit of duplicate content, I might add, but it seems to be acceptable on a larger brand.
Right.
So that's why Roofer 1 can't do this yet, because they'll have dupe content in the same state and possibly get penalized.
They're not big enough to get away with it.
The Roofer 2 might be big enough.
Yeah.
They can. They need to strip out attempts at local optimization, just show that they like do charitable stuff and things like that, and corporate-y looking site.
Yeah.
So AAMCO's down below. He's up top because he's relevant to local search, and he was in pack 3. Now, if you go over to Dallas and do this, and do transmission repair, transmission rebuild, one of those keywords with Dallas TX as a keyword, a different AAMCO has their individual site.
Yeah.
And so I don't think I was clear enough about this. AAMCO allowed the local transmissions to have their own .com,
right,
their own URL, like Plano Transmission Repair.com.
Yeah. But it's an AAMCO shop.
But it's an AAMCO shop. They control that brand, and they let that. And then AAMCO also has the corporate site. because they're aware that there was this local phenomenon with local search in local areas to match user intent. So the same thing you do over there, but in Dallas, there's a whole lot more transmission shops. So there's a ton of local people to show.
Right.
So a different AAMCO is number 1, and AAMCO.com is on page 3.
Right.
But why? Because they're not local, and there was enough local people to show people.
To fill up 2 more pages.
To fill up 2 more pages. So I don't. This is like ludicrous.
Hell, they probably had for Dallas. They probably had multiple local AAMCO shops to show.
They did. They do.
So,
yeah. So it's easy to see when it's explained like this, but I don't know how long this has been to explain all this. But it's easy to see why and how this stuff happens.
Right.
Nolen Walker here for Roofing Webmasters. I want you to consider becoming one of our clients. We've done this for 12 years, have hundreds of clients. We help everybody with their design, their code, their content, showing up on Google as high as possible. Clients get regular call volume. If you've never experienced what I call the big show, showing up on Google organically, which is where the vast majority of the clicks occur, on your map, your reputation, your reviews, your organic keyword ranking, you owe it to yourself to try us. We even have proprietary software that we own called data pens that lets you post pictures of jobs, unique captions that increase keywords and long tail keywords, your rankings on Google, text and emailing clients about reviews, even posting pins and photos and captions back to Google. All this helps your organic rankings. Data pens is fantastic, and the work we do here at Roofing Webmasters is fantastic. Please give us a call. We'd love to hear from you.
The AAMCO shop over there has more, and the same thing would exist in there. Why would they show this guy in this mega town if he's not local? There's other local people to show, and in fact, today in the city where he wants to show up, they had in fact chosen all local. Now you might debunk this from time to time in a small town, just like roofer number 1 who's moving to a new area shows up with an okay web effort because it was a smaller town.
Right.
And so you might find a guy I know a guy that shows up not in a big area, not when you get a fight, not when there's not when there's other choices to make. Google's not going to show you. You show up a town of 15,000, 30,000, maybe.
That's easy. Relatively speaking.
It's easy. The phone doesn't ring, and because of that, there's not much fight for the marketing in the area.
Right.
So I get people say, "Oh no, you don't see it." It'd be very rare for anybody to find this, and if they do, they're still missing tons of organic, like the keywords on the page, the content. And by the way, this is not. We do 200 things ourselves to check all this crud. That there's a ton of effort, and it's digital signaling. It's your digital signaling of your brand going back out to Google. This is just one little stupid thing to where someone could have tons of great digital signaling and become no longer local and
that could kill all.
And get killed.
Yeah.
Lose.
The localization it's become like a key, like a foundational aspect of all this.
So I know that the gentleman that we're talking about listens to our podcasts and videos. So the roofer number 1.
Gotcha.
So my hope would be that even though he was explained all this stuff, that I'm okay. Listen, I go learn stuff all the time. It takes a long time, to wrap around complicated processes.
And we learn new stuff all the time.
We do.
I mean, we recently discovered, speaking of localization, we recently discovered a weird quirk in localization that you can have an address in a given city, but if you're out on the edge, Google may choose not to show you
even in a small rural area.
Yeah.
That was maddening. We had a client recently in a market that wasn't big, less than 100,000 people.
Right.
Out in the rural area, but still kind of I would consider town. In fact,
his address was technically
the city,
the main city, but it was on the edge.
Didn't show him.
And Google was only showing him for the county, not the city. And that's brand new behavior. We've never seen that before.
I want to say this too before we get off. I would humbly, gratefully love to have roofer number one's business.
Yeah. We could
knock it out of the park.
Knock that shit out.
This has been therapeutic for me though, because it bothered me, the whole thing.
Yeah, you talked about it to me for a week.
I did
on the phone.
I did. So this has been helpful for me, some sort of therapeutic experience, So Jason having to listen to all this, I think that again, I think that it's one of the better ones for how people can. Let's sum this up. You can grow. I want you to grow. I want you to get the cheap leads, the best ones, and brand your company organically. That's what I really want for everybody. I'd love to be able to manage your $50,000 ad spend. If roofer number 2's listening, the guy, send me your 50 grand. We'll do it. The problem is the kid that called me, right? Not a kid, but the man who called me, he can't change the mind of the other person who's the one who set up the fundamental problem.
Yeah. Like the one who caused the train wreck.
They're in
and
deep.
He's still standing in the engine wondering why it's not on
what?
the track.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, but they could be rich for all I know. I've just been in business a long time and know they're probably not, and they're hurting. That's why the anger was there. It's like, we got to find something. What's wrong? PPC budget's not working. I was like, oh, really? And it's like, what's happened? Well, we spent 50 grand. We're in 16 locations, 12. I'm like, oh, how's your website? Oh. It's like, this.
Ew.
Yeah, this is a problem. He's like, I know. But he didn't know. He didn't truly know. But,
I mean, I'll give the guy some credit in that he knew there was a problem. He may have not known what it was. He may have not even known how to fix it, but he knew there was something wrong.
I think he was transferring from the owner's anger.
Maybe.
Kicking him. He's just a new dog that's kicking. Listen, we didn't explain that, but these marketing directors get, the business owners mess up the marketing, don't understand it, and they hire these poor marketing managers and then just wail on them. Yeah. And then they're a revolving door. These people don't last 6 months. And in their defense, they couldn't have done the job in the first place. Yeah. So you cannot hire a marketing manager to handle all marketing because they don't have the skill sets. Everything's too complicated. Which leads into our next podcast, by the way, which we'll stop and do.
I wanted to make one point about that ad budget, and you had made the comments about organic content.
Yeah.
This is something that a lot of people understand, is Google actually evaluates page content on the target pages of ad clicks now. So you tell them, I want to show up for X keyword, and this is where I want it to click to when somebody clicks. Mm-hmm. They go look at the target page, and if they decide that that's low quality content, they won't give you the prime clicks. They'll give you the low rent stuff. So they might spend your budget at 3 a.m. on stuff you don't really want because they've decided the page you're sending people to is low quality.
You get clicks but no conversion.
If they had a bad site, that could actually be what was happening to them on their ad budget.
Maddening too for people to say, hey Nolen, do you do landing pages? And I'm like, well, we do proper websites, and inherent within that are pages to apply to your Google Ads campaign.
Right.
Landing pages are for people who are trying to control your entire marketing budget on paid, and it's a fancy word for a web page. We inherently have great landing pages, which by the way have proper content and proper relevancy and conversion and all that, and reduce the cost per click for the ad spend.
Right.
No, they definitely don't have that with the 50K. Probably they're not.
Well, if you're spending 50K and it's not doing anything, yeah, you got a problem.
Stuff,
you got multiple problems.
All right, man. Well, that's a good one. We'd love to help you. Give us a call if you're looking for services. We can also help with paid. Always would love to help with paid. I just like to fix the organic. Organic fixes the paid problem.
Generally, yeah.
Generally. Take it easy, guys. We'll see you.
See ya.